Howdy ho, friends and foes, and welcome to Dad's on Life, your weekly episodic show on parenting from a male perspective. I'm your host, Jay Miles, and with me, as always, are my co-host, Keith Bogan
Dress for Halloween 365.
and Dave Dusenberry.
I pledge to always be scary to the little children.
Today, we're going to be talking about, as has seemed to have been mentioned, we're going to be talking about Halloween and different traditions we might do or things like that. Do kind of an all-encompassing Halloween show. Try to get two people to join us, but apparently things just we couldn't get it to work out. So if one of them jumps on, they will along the way. Um, but who wants to kick us off?
I yeah, you know what? You have the youngest kids that'll probably be the most active in the Halloween, so why don't you go for it, Jay?
All right. Well, Sadie has a uh, is going to be a like a horror clown type of thing. That's what the costume is, pretty much. Delana is going to be Queen Duck, and as of yesterday, had a tutu that she had added to it, and was trying to figure out a way to uh, assemble rubber duckies onto it.
Queen Duck. I like it.
Yeah. Um,
Put her on a Jeep dashboard.
I don't know. I think it was last year. I believe it was last year, maybe the year before. She was a Target worker and was walking around with the stuffed dog from Target. It's a friend of mine. We was a manager at Target. She had a name tag and everything. We borrowed my friend's name tag and put her name on it. Um, she's come up with some interesting ideas. Um, and today, well, even though Sadie's got a little bit of an issue with her ankle right now, they're still probably going to go out. She's still going to participate in the Halloween parade, which the nurse said you don't have to. And Sadie goes, "It's my last one. I'm doing it." So, and then they're going to walk around with a couple of Delana's friends, most likely. Um, because I mean, Sadie's friends are a little bit more spread out. She's got one or two that are right around the corner, but Delana's are closer. So they did last year with one of Delana's friends, and they do it usually incorporate Sadie into it. So it's not like she's just a little fourth wheel or third wheel. She usually gets involved with them. So works out pretty well. Um, Delana has suddenly decided she's going to start watching some of the horror movies. Um, she watched First Nightmare on Elm Street last week, and she's watched the first two Terrifiers. Um,
Okay.
she said Nightmare on Elm Street was stupid, the first one. She said the first Terrifier was stupid. She said the second one, then she said both of them weren't that bad. Um, so yet still doesn't want to go to any like haunted houses or anything like that. Although my niece actually was involved in the haunted theater in Brookdale this year. Unfortunately, things just didn't work out that we get down there. So,
Very cool. Very cool.
See, the kids have plans. I think back to when, obviously, my kids are 22 and 25 and a little older for that sort of thing. Although, as you know, by looking in the neighborhood, that doesn't necessarily stop
nope,
people from trick or treating or anything or
nope.
dressing up in some vague way.
Mhm.
But as you were talking, I was thinking to myself that their pattern of Halloween interest resembles their pattern of religious interest, which is to say, they were kind of cool to get into costume. Well, their mother put them in costumes when they were little, and it kept going on and on. probably through seventh or eighth grade.
Hmm.
And then they just said, this is not anything they're interested in. Uh,
Right.
they stopped doing it, and they weren't the kind of kids who were teenagers who would dress up. So I don't think they were involved after probably 12 or 13 years old at the earliest. Uh,
Hmm.
their mother liked the holiday, but didn't really push much. So the trick or treating ended early. Um, Mom and I did a little bit of decorating for Halloween, but you guys know I'm a curmudgeon. I'm the Scrooge of Halloween. So it never really, we didn't really do much. We would get pumpkins. We would carve pumpkins when they were small.
Hmm.
We'd probably carve them well into high school for the kids. Um, but certainly since they left for college, I haven't done any of that stuff. Uh, I joke all the time that I'm dressed 365 because I'm already in scary costume. But other than that, I have no interest in it. Um, although I did dress up once a while back. Of course, quite fittingly, I was Satan. So, I didn't have to really dress up. What can I say? Because I already was. Uh, but the parallel I'm talking about is the kids went through religious training so they could also bar mitzvah, both be bar mitzvahs, which they did. And in Justin's case, the moment he was bar mitzvah, never did anything religious again, just walked away. He fulfilled the obligation. He was passionate about doing it. He learned the Hebrew, he did all that stuff, and then he gone.
Yep.
As soon as we, there was nothing more from him, from his perspective to do, disappeared. Jeremy stuck around a little bit longer to do. We have something called confirmation in the Jewish religion. And he did that, but he was not interested at all. He just sort of did it by rote,
Hmm.
showed up occasionally to fulfill the requirements, and then poof, neither one of them has anything to do with the religion at all anymore. They don't observe anything. There's a similarity between what they did on the religion side and what they did for things like Halloween. They're just not. They grew up with a curmudgeon dad who doesn't really subscribe to the Hallmark holidays, if you will, as I call them. And I know there's more of a history to Halloween than just what Hallmark says, but Hallmark has done a really good job of distorting what the holiday is.
Hmm.
What I would really like to listen to, and I'm sure you guys know much more about this, is the history of the actual event and where it came from and what it really supposed to mean. Uh,
That's why I was trying to get Jason to come on. Jason is the guy who does he was the coordinator of Zombie Walk for he coordinated from the very beginning. Um and stepped away this year. He when he was on last time, unfortunately, if you listen back, there's breaks in his audio, so you can't hear everything he's saying. But he explained what this was in Samhain, which um the holiday is based on it's actually based on a pseudo religious holiday, um, which we bastardize as Samhain. It's not, it's Samhain. It's actually Irish, Celtic. Um, and it's a holiday of the change of the seasons. It's kind of not really meant to be what we have changed it into in this country and around the world, in a way. Because I mean, Halloween is celebrated in other parts of the world. It's not just American.
mhm.
Um, but it's from Samhain. I'll get the information in one sec. If you just give me 1 second exactly, I'll get you somewhat of, like I said, I just wish Jason was here. Um, because he could wax poetic about that for hours. We could have a 3 hour show on Jason explaining Halloween to us.
And
Um,
what Halloween morphed into this scary, ghoulish thing that and I kiddingly say Hallmark, but there were forces at work over the years that helped morph this holiday into something that it didn't start out being.
Hmm.
Uh, and if you think of scary and ghoulish, Justin and Jeremy's mom and myself were never into things like horror movies. We don't we've never seen Friday the 13th and Freddy Krueger and all that stuff. We're
mhm.
aware of it all, but we've literally never seen any of the horror movies. And it's just not our thing. So when you don't plug into that, you're probably not plugging into the scary, ghoulish stuff of Halloween.
Yeah.
When I dressed up, I remember the last time I ever dressed up, I dressed up as a Yankee baseball player. Not like, except if you look at the last two games, it's not scary and ghoulish. So uh,
Well
It's
said.
actually All Hallows Day, All Saints
perfect.
Day, the Feast of All Saints, the Feast of Hallows, and actually in some places called Hallowmass. But that's the day after. It is a religious holiday. Um, in the Christians,
I remember that. Someone's told me about that before. Yeah.
right? Some Christian religions, it's a holiday. November 1st is a holiday. Um, and then there's observations of it and things like that. Yeah, it's not what we've done to it. And it's not just us that have done it. Um, but yeah, some of it goes back to Samhain, things like that. Um,
I will say from the parenting perspective, she and I had very different views of this when they were little, because I never had an interest in it. I mean, I did when I was a kid, and then I outgrew it, and I did it a couple times at work because it was the thing to do, but it was just never a thing. But she was into it when they were little, so
mhm.
she got me this. It looks like a cone, a very floppy headed cone that you would see out in the street, for construction cones, and it says party animal on it. So I would walk with them and I'd wear this massive cone on my head, but I wouldn't dress up. I was Scrooge. Um, but in the interest of parenting my kids and trying to work with my wife at the time, I would walk with them. I'd be with them to do this sort of thing and play along a little bit. But it was always difficult for me because it just never held any interest. Like I listened to you guys, and I know that you guys have done a lot of things over the years. When I look at the posts of people like our mutual friend Crystal, who is she clearly is into this holiday, and I'm like, yeah, no, it's not my thing.
Yeah, I'm actually expecting to get trick-or-treaters hopefully this year for the first time in like over in like 8 years because I recently moved this past year and the house that I was at before had a driveway that was like 150, 200 feet long.
I
Nobody
say
ever wanted
nobody
to
wants to
walk.
walk up your driveway.
Nobody wanted to walk up the driveway. But but my new house is like right on the street, right on one of the main drags. So I'm actually expecting to get trick-or-treaters this year. So I kind of have to prepare for that. And I was talking to my wife the other day and I'm like, I need to be able to greet trick-or-treaters and do something, right? Because I don't have the house decorated up and stuff like that. I'm going to be moving in a couple of years. I don't want to have the extra crap, right? So
Mhm.
I'm like, what could I do to liven things up? Now, for those of you watching in the audience that don't know me, I'm 6.5 feet tall, right? So I thought, well, and I have long hair, and I'm like, I should just throw on some like Undertaker style corpse makeup, and when kids come knocking at the door, just open the door slowly and look straight down at them because that will be really cool. They got this giant dude wearing corpse makeup and his hair hanging down in his face. I'm like, that's a good way to greet the little kids. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and do that because, you know, have a little bit of fun with it. I'm used to getting stares anyway, especially from little kids. They see basically a two-legged skyscraper walking by in the mall, and I get have some fun with it.
I
But yeah,
mean, I can attest of besides from seeing Dave, um, I believe I've seen one of his kids in the mall, and it's kind of similar with his daughter.
yep,
You see his daughter, and you're like, holy shit.
that's my little girl. But it's funny.
I'm thinking, Grim Reaper face, a Sith.
hmm
Yeah, no, I could see you doing this for sure.
But it's funny. My youngest, my 16-year-old, he was talking to me about Halloween stuff the other day because I was like, "Hey, what are you doing for Halloween?" He's going to be at his mom's. Figuring that he's going to get together with his buddies. He's still 16. That's on the older side, but you could still get away with going around. He's funny. He's like, I've gotten to the point where I ask my friends what they're doing for Halloween, and a couple of them are like, "Oh, I have to work." Like he's gotten to that point where now some of his peers are of the age that they're doing jobs or they're doing little things that will keep them away from being able to grab bags of candy around the neighborhood. So he's reached that transition point where, you know, that he's kind of getting around, and he's not a huge like he's not a huge holiday guy anyway. He's a very kind of practical kid and kind of downplays a lot of stuff. I'd be very interested. I actually have to follow up with my older son up in college, up in Massachusetts, to see what he's going to be doing for Halloween because he is a college freshman in the middle of Boston with all of that craziness going on around him. I would imagine he's going to art school. So I would expect that they will be doing something artsy, celebratory, makeup wise, where he will dress up in some way, shape, or form. I have to check with him. He'll probably have a good time.
And I'm looking for ways to hide. And I was hoping, okay, it's the week of the World Series, maybe that'll help. But if it's still going on at that point, that's an off day. Oh shit.
Mhm.
It
Do you get a
doesn't.
lot of trick-or-treaters where you're at? Because I know in your
I get a
area of the
lot.
neighborhood, you get because you're kind of like tucked back there, you know?
Yeah, that's okay. We this neighborhood is actually 10,000 residents.
Wow.
And there's two schools specifically built for this neighborhood, to
Elementary school.
cover the K through 5 range. So yeah, I'm totally hosed. I got to go somewhere.
It's funny.
Uh,
I know, like you were asking of, it's kind of for some people it doesn't. Halloween is even into our ages. Halloween is big, like I mentioned. Jason, who was on with us a couple of years ago, created Zombie Walk. He still was involved in it this year, although he stepped back from running it. He was there with his daughter. His daughter did a zombie Taylor Swift, I believe. Um, and it's very, pretty interesting. And then Richie, who was also going to join us, but was uh, at a Halloween party last night. His mother is there today, so he couldn't join us. But he goes around to different um, hay rides at farms and things like that, dressed as Michael Myers. Well, Richie is very similarly as tall. I don't think he's as tall as Dave. I think he's 6'3" and bald.
Hmm.
So he, gets away with the Michael Myers thing quite well. Richie's, not the smallest guy either. So he looks intimidating. He's been doing that for the last several years. I believe now to the point where he's actually at least paid for it. Um, so I mean, there's a lot of things like that people do. Um, I mean, Keith, if you put on a mask, I'm sure you could
I'm wearing a mask right now.
go
What are you
terrorize
talking about?
somebody's neighborhood, someone along the way.
Yeah, I mean, people amongst my peer group, my friends and cohorts amongst the years, have been very, very into the Halloween spirit. I have a number of my friends that throw parties every year that get dressed up, that really get into it. And I've mentioned this on the show before. I'm not a big holiday guy these days. Whether it's Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter. I'm not a big Halloween. I'm not a big holiday guy. Um, I think a lot of that just factors into the fact that you know a lot of holidays are family centric events, and at least my immediate family is kind of broken to the four winds at this point. So there's not a lot of like especially on my side of the family, both of my parents have passed on. I get together with my brother, which is great. Um, I see my sister when I can. None of my aunts and uncles seem to want to talk to each other anymore. Um, so it's like, whatever. you know. But while the kids were younger, definitely got into it with them. I loved walking around the neighborhood with them. Um, I remember, God, I never got a chance to do it, but there was one year that probably we're talking like when the kids were really little, like 2010-ish or so, that we wanted to go around our old neighborhood and walk around, and they were. I was looking at ideas that I could wear to dress up with them, and at the time there was a popular internet character called Slender Man, and for anybody that remembers that time, Slender Man was just this like real tall, gangly guy with like long hands and things like that. And I always said I should walk around the neighborhood as Slender Man because I would freak out every single little kid in the neighborhood because it would be a good look. But I couldn't find the costume and I couldn't get it together. I was really big on for a while. I was really big on making costumes for the kids. Um, I got into a bit of a crafty phase, and
Mhm.
they were both they both are were and still are big Five Nights at Freddy's fans, my
Right.
boys. And I got asked um, by, they were like 8 at the time, and I'm like, they said, "Hey, I want to go out as Nightmare Fredbear." I'm like, "What the hell is that?" So I look it up, and I'm like, "There's obviously no costumes for this at the time," and I'm like, "Let me see if I can make it." So, in the classic crafter's creed of why buy a costume for $40 when you can make one from raw materials for like 300, um, I got sucked in and made Nightmare. I made a Nightmare Bear for Jay one year, and I did like the black bodysuit. I got the foam. I made the headpiece. I made it so that he could wear it on his head, and the jaws of the animatronic bear, like his face, kind of came out from the middle of the animatronic jaws. It looked really, really, really cool. Probably one of the best costumes that I've ever made. And then, of course, I had to follow up the next year because my younger son, he's like, he saw what he did for Jay, and he's like, "You need to make me one of those for me." So I did, and to this day, they both have the foam heads that I made from those costumes on their dressers in their rooms. Like they loved that costume. So
Nice.
that was I don't I burned my fingers with glue from glue guns. I I did, all of the crafting injuries that you get, but at least for those 2 years, it was worth it to see that creation, see my kids walk around in that and have a good time. So, you know, I guess it's like, did you guys ever have that experience? Did you ever get a chance to, like, you ever get approached from your kids and like, "Hey, I want to do this," and then you can't find it, so you have to figure out a way to make it? That would be a
Yeah,
good topic
yes,
for
but not
Jason.
Halloween. Yes, but not Halloween. We
Okay.
did art projects and such, but never Halloween costumes. Not like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I did the couple times that I had to make costumes for the kids was one, obviously for the Halloween stories with the Five Nights at Freddy's characters, and then for Dr. Seuss Day at school. I made Jay an absolutely killer Cat in the Hat costume one year with like a hat that was like 3 feet tall, held up with chopsticks on the inside, glued together on the inside of the hat. Like this felt hat looked great. And then I made a great costume for Paul to be the Grinch. I like painted his face all green, and I made the whole green costume, and he looked amazing. He looked amazing. That was in my I had like a 4 year span where I got crafty for some reason.
Delena's kind of doing it now. I have a feeling Sadie will follow up doing it. But Delena's starting to come up with it and do different things now. Um, like her most of her costume really is a pair of pajamas, a duck onesie. Everything else she's kind of trying to do on her own. She's trying to figure. She was like I said, she was trying to figure out a way to get the rubber duckies onto a tutu. Um, which I mean, we know the obvious ones, but the obvious one, but we're I don't know if we're gonna break out the hot glue gun to do that, but
Or you will if she asks.
Yes.
she was trying to tape it. I think she's just gonna settle for having the ducks in her pocket right now. At least as far as I know as of now. Um, but who knows in the next couple of days what the decision is. Um, Sadie right now is still um, kind of seeing it so we buy the costumes now, at least for her. Um, but I got a feeling she's going to start designing her own soon. I can see it coming.
Yep.
Um, I definitely can see it coming. Both of them, like I said, I can see it coming. Um,
Jason, when this stuff happens,
Mm.
which one of you, Elise or yourself, is more participative in the costume design stuff? Is she more interested in this than you, or vice versa?
Uh, really? We just kind of let her do it on her own. Um, Last year she was able to do it on her own. Like I said, I think they just printed out the laminate for the name tag, and that was about it. Um, I think that was 2 years ago. I don't remember. With the zombie target walker, she was no. Last year she was. What did she do last year? I can't remember. Keep going. Let me find out. Trying to remember what she was. Guys,
Yeah. Sorry.
What do you want us to keep going with?
talk about something.
I have very little artillery here.
That's
Holy
true.
shit! Talk about something. Holy frig!
That's true. Um, yeah, I mean, I said I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing some kids around. It's weird because I think, and maybe you guys are seeing this in your towns too. I happened to notice when I was out the other day walking the dog that we have an elementary school around the corner from ours, right? And I noticed that they were doing a trunk or treat thing, which I've seen around
We have
obviously
that
over
in
the
our
years,
we
right?
have it in our town too. Yeah.
So and that's great. It's a big thing. I almost wonder, and I know that like COVID kind of helped kind of initiate some of that stuff and safety concerns and all this other crap. But I wonder if I didn't realize that there was a trunk or treat in our town because where I lived before, I was tucked back and I didn't see anybody. Now I see that, and I almost wonder if kids are doing those instead of the traditional walk around trick or treat on Halloween night because I have noticed a drop off, at least of in the neighborhood. I've been living in this town for almost 20 years now, and I remember when I first moved here that we got a pretty substantial showing on trick or treat night, Halloween night, at my old house in Yardville. Um, but it almost makes me wonder if more kids are doing more of and the parents organize doing the whole trunk or treat thing instead of actually walking around the neighborhoods. Um, and if that's the case, that's I will say I'm not I'm not a fan. I'm not a
No,
fan.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Well,
Um,
it's a reflection of people thinking that society is so dangerous that they can't let their kids walk around trick or treating anymore.
Which is sad.
It's very
yeah.
sad.
And
Very sad.
I'll be honest, I don't understand it.
No,
I mean, it's in my entire lifetime history, and I can't even think of a story that's related. I've never heard of anybody getting attacked on anybody walking around with kids getting attacked on Halloween night trick or treating. Like I've
Welcome
no.
never.
to
I mean,
It's just,
welcome to social media again, which will inflame a
yeah,
story here about
yeah, but
candy spiked with
yeah.
poison or something like that.
with
I just,
or apples and razor blades. I mean, we all have heard it, but
yeah. I just
it's
don't. I don't get it.
such a minor incident, not a minor incident, but such a small,
Unusual.
Yeah.
right, right, a small sample of the amount that actually happens, despite how often we're told this. I mean, I know growing up as a kid, yeah, you heard it a lot, but I don't remember anything happening to anyone on Halloween, except maybe, except for getting too sick from eating too much candy. That might have been the essence of anything that ever happened to anybody that I ever heard.
That was more of a goal than a consequence.
Yeah, yeah, um, that's true. And just last year, Delana. Now I remember the sign. Delana was the Chick-fil-A cow last year,
Yeah.
and made the eat more chicken
More
sign and
chicken.
had that
Yep.
around her neck. Yeah, but that was something that was duct tape and a piece of poster board, which I think she may have done herself, maybe a little guidance from Elise, but I think did
A,
it.
a,
Delena's
a,
really done most of it herself the last couple of years.
a sign like that is best done by somebody with no artistic skills. It's designed as the original sign was done, written by
I
Debs.
think I remember Joanna doing it herself, actually. Um, yeah,
But
I mean, there was that one video that went viral of the chickens and cows fighting in the parking lot.
yep,
If you remember that one, it was
yep.
hysterical. A couple of years ago, that well, more than a couple now, probably about 6 or 8. At this point, that video first surfaced, and it got millions of views, and it was hysterical. And yeah, I mean, it definitely brought some positive press. I mean, no such thing as bad press, but that definitely was not bad press for Chick-fil-A at all. It was actually
No.
pretty smart to have done it, and it was, a big mark. They could have marketed it themselves, which I think they're probably the ones that might have leaked the video out in the first place. Um, but I mean, if you remember that video, the guy's reaction is hysterical, and it just was a couple of people who may have worked there. Their boss probably said, "Hey, go do this," and they
Yeah,
probably were a bunch of kids who went, "Yeah, okay, no problem,
yeah. Why not?
we'll do it." Just don't hurt each other was essentially probably the end of it.
Yeah.
Um,
But I'll say like Halloween. Obviously, you have the scary element, right? But it's scary. You know, of course, you got the horror movies and things like that for the adult crews. But for kids, it's scary, but in a fun way, right? So
mhm.
you have haunted houses and things like that that obviously go in different levels from very innocent to terror behind the walls and in at the Eastern State Penitentiary, which
I
is
want to go back. I want to go back to them.
awesome, by the way. Awesome experience. I'm not a horror movie guy at all, right? Not my thing.
Mhm.
Just
Right.
not my I'm with Keith on this. But I like going to haunted houses
Mhm.
because I know I see people and clearly that's not real, but I like the makeups, I like the effects, I like all that. And not for nothing, I'm 6.5 feet tall. You're not gonna scare me. I'm bigger than you. You're not gonna scare me. But um I love that aspect. I've always felt that there's definitely a family, little kid centric element to Halloween, and
Mhm.
I like that part of it. Um, you go out, you see all the people dressed up in their outfits. You run into other families as you're walking around the neighborhood. You can chat a little bit. You see some of the creativity. You go up and meet your neighbors. Like the one thing I will say, and I'm going to sound like that guy, the get off your lawn guy, right? We don't get many opportunities to actually interact with neighbors these days. It's the whole concept of neighborhood, which honestly, like I said, I've been living in this town for 20 years. Um, and I felt that I haven't really had a good relationship with neighbors that I've had in and around my neighborhood because little kids are a great facilitator for that because you have to go door to door, you talk to people, you hang out, um, you see all the other kids around, and if we take that away by doing things like like standardizing trick or treats or centrally organized things, you lose yet another element of what makes a neighborhood a neighborhood.
Mhm.
And uh, I'm not a fan of that. I you know the internet age and everything like that already makes us disconnected from people in an actual physical interaction sense as it is. Um, that's just one more kind of chip in the armor to kind of isolate us away from the people that live next door to us.
Mhm.
Yeah, not a fan.
I would totally agree, and I'm not necessarily a fan of the holiday, but not against it, but I just don't care. But maybe this is just the old guy in me that says, well, growing up, kids just randomly picked houses and went where
Yeah,
they wanted to go, and it was an adventure. And also, they were going to a lot of times they were going to their friends' houses, but they were also going to new houses where they were making new friends.
yeah,
Mhm.
yep,
If you shift that to taking all of that away, again, it's another way that society is controlling the actions of its individuals. So you're like forced to go to this one parking lot, and the way I was raised in the holiday, that it seems like there's no fun in that. Now, times change, I get that, but um, telling a kid that can only go to a parking lot because it's not safe is telling me that the parent is not parenting.
Hmm.
Little kids, if a parent is going with them, they should be safe. They should always be in view. The parent is right down the walkway,
Yeah,
watching go up to the door. It doesn't stop people from putting a razor blade in an apple. I get that, but like I said, that's such a one-off. I was thinking in my mind, I was thinking while you were talking about that, the Tylenol scare when we recalled Tylenol. It's got to be what, 40 years ago now? 35, 40 years ago that happened, but people still flinch when they hear Tylenol.
Hmm.
It was a big thing at the time, of course, but it was one event. They've never had an issue since, and people still flinch about it.
I know.
It's the same thing with
Yeah.
a couple of razor blades and apples. Terrible thing, but that was a long time ago. You haven't heard about anything like that in a long time. And people will say, well, it's because we've homogenized it and we put it into parking lots and trunk or treat now instead. So that's how we protect the kids. I mean, that's crap. It really
Yeah.
is.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. Um,
On the other hand, if you really want to enjoy Halloween, let me tell you how you want to do that. Be in New York City all day long. Oh my God. It is the second biggest drinking day of the year, just behind St. Patrick's Day. Um, there are drunk people passed out all over the streets everywhere, starting as early as 6 o'clock in the morning because they got an early start. Um, the whole town is dressed up in crazy stuff, and the further downtown you go, the crazier it gets. Um, yeah, it's not a day to be productive if you're working in New York City.
I'm
They have
expecting
not.
something. I'm expecting something very similar up in Boston with all of those college kids.
Yes,
yeah.
exactly. And pretty much anywhere where there's a university, a large university, you probably or several schools in
Or a
one.
city. Yeah.
Yeah, you
Yep.
probably have a lot of that sort of thing. Much, life happens in urban areas,
Yep.
and,
Hmm.
in rural areas, it's disappearing, if you will. Uh, yeah, the parties are pretty intense in the cities, but my only experience with Halloween and that is New York City, and it is a freak show that you can't describe it. You have to live it. You really do. That's what I think you should do, Jason. I think in the earlier part of the day, you should take the kids out of school and take them to New York City and let them experience that because they're young enough to be completely horrified by all that.
Yeah, except for the fact of if I take her out, I have to can't we can't really put her back in. So Sadie would miss her Halloween parade. So
Oh, that's right. It is that day. I forgot. Yes, that's a good point. Um, well, when they're older, they'll get to experience this stuff, and I'm sure it won't be any less insane, in the coming.
probably not.
I've been in New York both of those days, that Halloween and St. Patrick's Day, and it is, if you're not drunk, you're horrified. You really are. You really, and you should be horrified by what you see.
Oh, I've worked in bars on St. Patrick's Day, and it's it's insanity in some of those. So I can only imagine. That's why I don't go anywhere near.
You personally, I wouldn't go anywhere near that stuff, but just in general, if you think that the spirit of Halloween is dead, it's not if you go into the city. That's for sure.
Mhm.
I wonder what it's like in New Brunswick, close to home, at Rutgers. I wonder what it's like there. Probably pretty fun there too.
It was when I lived there way back in the day, that's for sure.
Okay, but we're not talking about the Lincoln administration, Dave. Come
That's
on.
you're not wrong. You're not wrong. You know, there are certain definitely areas where there are more age appropriate types of celebration, right? Heavily college centric areas are going to have heavily college centric crowds and have celebrations that involve lots of cheap beer and skimpy costumes, which I'm a fan of. Um,
Agree with that
obviously,
too.
you got your suburban neighborhoods, which, as we've talked about, with the kids walking around and hopefully, you know, um, getting some treats, having some of those of us that really enjoy decking out for the holidays, decking out their houses and making it all creepy. Um, We have a couple of those around my neighborhood, and I always appreciate those. Um, I could see myself getting more into decorating for holidays. I think once I am back in a house that I own, it's hard to do it when you're renting,
Yeah,
I think.
I would think that's true. Yes.
Yeah, and that might be part of my holiday malaise that it's hard to really get into. And some people do it. Some people, they rent their whole lives and they decorate their places, and whatnot. I don't know. I've always felt renting is more transitory, and I like to be settled if I'm going to be decorating things. It's just a personal thing. So maybe when I move south in a couple of years, I can get back into the spirit or spirits if it's Halloween, and we'll see. Cool.
I think we should in next week's show we should talk about what the kids did,
Yeah.
especially especially yours, Jason.
It'll just be me and you.
All right, the 2 weeks. Up yours.
We'll be dealing with post-election fallout after that.
I'll be in the bomb shelter. Either way, I'll be in the bomb shelter.
That's funny. That's funny. Cool.
I think that's a pretty good place to leave us for this week. Anybody have anything they want to add?
Just go out and have fun with your kids, man. Don't spend if you have little kids, um, let them engage in their fantasy lives and just go out and have a good time. You know, I understand that there's an element of worry, safety, scary people, blah 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 blah. But
Hmm.
social interaction gets built by taking chances and going out and doing things.
Mhm.
Do
Yep.
it. I
Yep.
encourage it. Meet your neighbors, talk to people. I have lots of introverted friends that can't stand stuff like this. I understand that. Let your kids go out and interact with some of the ones around them and let them escape real life for a little bit.
I,
Um,
I totally get that. I'm the big curmudgeon, but I was still
yeah,
as supportive as I could be when they were small,
yeah.
pre-high school, put it that way. And I think it was my influence that allowed them to step away from it when they were ready to step away from it. When they no longer saw that an interest, and they stopped doing it, but they had fun with it earlier than that. So they got to experience what everybody experiences, put the costume on, ring the doorbells, meet new people. Yeah, it was
Hmm.
good.
Okay.
Cool.
That's a good place to wrap us up for this week. So, from all of us here at Dad's on Life, take care of everybody. And of course, Keith, eat my shorts.
I'm chomping, baby.
Later, guys.
See ya.